Hello and welcome back, all of you professional consumers of Pax Dei content out there. I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer, and this is another episode of the PAX Friday Review, the show where we talk about all the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has dropped for Pax Dei over the last week. This week, we were given the official cutoff date for our wipes, or the cleanup of plots that is going to be happening in the next couple of days. In fact, if you are watching this as of Friday, the date of recording of this video, August 16th, there are only 3 days away. On August 19th, they will have the cutoff for determination of what plots get cleaned up and what plots don't. If you want to make sure that you or your friends' plots are covered, I would highly recommend going and checking up on the How to Not Lose Your Plots video that we made just last week. It's definitely worth your time or your friend's time if you have a plot that you're going to be working on, but you just haven't had the time to do so already. All of that being said, we also got a very large blog post about playing Pax Dei solo. I know many of you, just generically, a lot of followers of Pax Dei are interested in the concept of playing solo, and we have a huge post talking about that. It was written by some friends of the channel as well, and it's a great read with a lot of good advice. We're going to go through it together. So I'll see you over at the blog post, and as always, if you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with any of your friends who are interested in learning more about Pax Dei. All right, I'll see you over there. All right, so here we are at the playpaxdei.com official blog post. This is also put over on the official Discord as well. But what are we talking about today? We are talking about 1 day at a time conquering Pax Dei solo. So in this article, we're talking about all of the different experiences that revolve around playing solo. There's some pretty good tips to follow as well if you are looking to play the game at more of your own pace as a solo player. And Pax Dei as a game is not intended to be played as a single player game, but solo gameplay is completely different from a single player gameplay. And with that, you have to understand that by undertaking the task of playing solo, you are going to be giving yourself a lot more of a grind, because Pax Dei does have a large grind, but it doesn't mean that it's not something that you can't do. It also is important to note that Pax Dei, one of its core pillars is that it is a social sandbox MMO. It is a social sandbox. That means that part of what you're going to be doing in Pax Dei is interacting with other people. That is not a single player game. That is a MMO where a lot of people are playing, and you are going to interact with them as part of the gameplay dynamics that are in the game. That applies for very large clans all the way down to solo players. You're still going to have to interact and socialize with others, but that doesn't mean that you're going to have to progress with other large groups of players. You can still do that by yourself. There's just going to be a little bit more work to do, and part of the reason why you're probably soloing is because you enjoy doing that work as well. But because of the building system and the size of the map, persistence and players' impact on Pax Dei, there's going to be a lot of interplay and dynamics around how the economy works, how players are interacting, and solo players are most definitely going to be a portion of this particular set of gameplay. And it is really important, especially because not only do we have the economy, but we have the feudal system. And when both of these kick in, solo players are going to be very, very important. I would imagine that there's going to be tasks that solo players will really, really, really need to do, but large groups of players will not necessarily be the best at doing those things. They might be more well suited for solo players, whereas larger groups are off doing other things that are more catered for larger groups. And with that, it's going to put an importance on solo players in both the economy and any of the other systems that exist in game that gives them true value which they can then use to get things that maybe they don't have as much of the ability to grind for or do anything like that. So that is a important thing to note as well. Now, two of the players who contributed to giving some input on this are Holy Dan and Ancient Swap Lord Grumpy Grim. Now, both of these players have been featured on the channel before. I'm pretty sure there's a subscribed. If they're not, what are you guys doing? But either way, both of them are incredibly nice individuals, and I can confirm they have been playing solo for quite a while, and they have some pretty good input as to how to be successful as a solo player. They do put in a lot of work as well, and that's something that's very, very worth mentioning. Now, to get into chapter 1, we're out of the introduction and into chapter 1 itself. The first and most important thing to be successful as a solo player is you need to pick the right spot. And the best place to not pick is where you're going to have a lot of large groups that are going to kind of hamper your ability to do things. Now, I have a lot of varied experience with this, as the Golden Company is one of the larger groups, unexpectedly so, on our server. We take a completely different approach than I feel a lot of groups are, where a lot of groups take an exclusionary approach where they're trying to push people away and keep all the resources and all the things for themselves. For the most part, the Golden Company has been very, very passionate about bringing other players in so that they can get all of the experiences that a large group would have without having to do necessarily all of the legwork that is required to do it. So they have their own autonomy. They don't have to go join a big group and do all of the big group things, but they can still participate in all of the big group things if they want to. I feel like that might be a little bit of an anomaly that doesn't exist everywhere. So I might be a little bit biased on that, but as a general principle for solo players, it is advised to kind of settle away from all of the large population centers, which, for anyone wondering, if you're near a Petra Dei or the very large obelisk that you spawn next to, chances are there's going to be a large community that's formed around there, either an organized one or an unorganized one, because that's where everyone spawns in. So another place that you want to avoid is the top of mountains. While they might be relatively scenic, they don't have many resources, and you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot because you can only have such a big inventory. And while stack sizes have been increased, they haven't been increased that much. Also, islands or borders of lakes, these are all high population centers that players in specific player groups are going to gravitate towards. So they also give some advice to be careful of wooded areas. Make sure that when you're placing, you're not placing on an area that's recently been chopped down by a player, because you're going to place your plot down and start building, and then all these trees are going to be springing up. It is important to note that this is a known issue, and trees spawning through your builds is going to be something that's going to get fixed in the future. However, I do hope that Mainframe keeps trees allowing to spawn in your plot. It's just that when they're colliding with foundations, maybe they don't. I don't know how that would work necessarily. Even if they just had the ability to check on and off whether or not trees can spawn on your plot, would be amazing. But either way, if you find a good spot, you want to make sure that you don't overbuild and that you're just learning the basics. Part of the reason for that is you might find out that you actually need more resources of something as opposed to where you're at right now, and it would be beneficial to move somewhere else. Having outposts is not an outlandish thing to have if you have the privilege to have more than one plot. If you don't, you might want to only build temporary structures that you can then pick up and move the important parts to a new location in the future. Next up, Chapter 2, the best thing that you can do, this is for solo players, this is for players in large groups, small groups, is just pick everything up. One of the first things that I did when early access launched is I just ran around the entire world picking everything up that I could. And whether or not I unlocked anything didn't really matter, but it was that I was unlocking everything that I could right off the bat. And it's really important to do that because you'll learn all the different types of recipes. As a solo player, that's going to be critically important because you're going to need to be leveling up alchemy. You're going to be needing to level up food. One of the best things that you can level up early is food, because that's going to give you some of the biggest jumps in your abilities as you can, because you just have more health. I don't know many things. There aren't that many things in game that just give you more health when you eat it. It's only food that does that. There's no special armor or enchantments or magic that just you can get right off the bat that gives you more health or more stamina. Food does that. Getting better food is going to help you advance a lot quicker. It'll help you chop down more trees quicker when you have more stamina. It's just all around a good thing to start off with. But the important thing to do is pick everything up and find out what you need so that you can then optimize. So never just sit there. If you're smelting a bunch of iron, make sure you're going out. You're going to wait 2 hours or you're going to wait an hour. Go out and collect more wood. Go out and collect more random mushrooms and stuff like that. There's going to be a lot of trying to keep multiple stoves all going at the same time. And for any of you solo players out there, I'd be really interested to hear what some of your opinions are down in the comments about what you find has led you to the most success. It would be really interesting to read some of those. Maybe we'll cover it in another PAX Friday review at a later time. Then chapter 4, you can take some enemy camps solo. This is 100% true. And something that I would like to kind of extrapolate on here is, while you are a solo player, there are many, many communities that are out there that have players willing to trade with you for other things. I know back a month ago when orange hides, animal hides, were super rare and people wanted them, I and a lot of others were willing to trade the armor off of our backs if you could give us multiple stacks of that stuff. And for a solo player, it was relatively easy to go and farm a cave or just some wolves or boar that were running around in the outside. And now with some of the magical gear that's available, soloing bears is even possible. So being able to collect some of those raw resources and then hand them back is also something that is critically important as well, because trade is only going to become more and more important. Like we mentioned earlier in the video, once the economy comes online, solo players are going to have a critical value to the economy based on what they're able to provide. And while you might not be providing all of the most glorious things, or maybe you even are, you're still going to be providing value that you can then exchange for things that maybe you don't have access to or you haven't been able to spend the time in yet. So it doesn't hamper your growth in that way either. And who knows, you might become some trade guild master and just be working the market the entire time. That would be really cool to see if some players are able to do that. Now, it is also important to get familiar with how enemies attack. Just walking up to them and left clicking isn't going to work. Learning how to pull them with a bow is also really important, especially when you don't have any magic items available to you, like pacify, because you're going to have to be able to control how many enemies you're pulling and how many you aren't. And as a result, taking wooden arrows is a must. It is highly recommended that you do that because they're, one, really easy to make, and two, they will help you out even in the most dire straits. Just being able to pull something and not everyone else is going to be great, and the wood doesn't seem to aggro as many other mobs around it either. So another big one is your blocking skill is highly critical. The scaling on that, when you're at max level on block, it can take something that's 20 in its block rating and turn it into something that's 40. It's doubling your blocking, and that's just 40 damage that you aren't taking. Your shield's taking it instead. That's huge, and that's even with a basic shield. And as a solo player, you need all of the damage mitigation that you can get. And then it is also recommended that if you're able to get a fire magic recipe, then crafting that as well is going to unlock your ability to take on more difficult enemies like infected or corrupted or hellions and imps, because fire does more damage to them. And then the last thing that is talked about in this chapter, which has been quite an extensive one, is that some players have managed to go solo into dungeons, though it is very hard. It is very unforgiving. If you die in the middle of a dungeon, it's going to be brutal because you're not going to be able to get back all of that gear that got you down there. unless you have backups is not going to get you back. And it is very, very punishing. In addition, solo players going through dungeons, if they don't mess up, those respawns are going to be coming in pretty rapidly after you clear a room because it takes so long to clear everything out so methodically. That can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on if you're trying to farm something or not. But either way, the margin for error is just really, really low. It is entirely possible. It has been done. I've seen it done. I know players who have done solo dungeons. It's just you have to be a particular cut of player who's willing to just lose it all and go to their backups or what have you. Or better yet, reach out to larger groups and have them form a rescue party to come and recover your body. Many groups are willing to do that. I know we've done it several times. Then chapter 5, I think one of the most important things that we can learn from this, if we haven't known it already, from my just incessant ranting about it, is that just because you're a solo player doesn't mean you need to play alone. Solo is in reference to your progression, not in reference to your interactions with others. You can be a solo player and not be beholden to what other players want, not have to go listen to a guild leader, banter about random things that need to be done that you don't care about. You can go and just play your game, play it the way that you want to, but then you still need to interact with others. If you don't want to join a clan, that's totally fine. There's still a place for you in Pax Dei, but it's important for you to be able to interact and go on adventures with others. Now, for most people, you're not going to be the one soloing a dungeon. It's going to be very, very hard, especially if you don't have the gear that you get from the dungeon in order to solo the dungeon. So the best thing that you can do is to interact with others, group up with them. That doesn't mean join their clan. That doesn't mean that you have to, bend the knee to them, but it does mean that you can build those relationships and go out. I know for the Golden Company and the Golden City, we run 4 or 5 different dungeon runs a week, and anyone from a solo player to large groups can join alongside of us and participate in the loot cycle for all of the different elite mobs. And that's been huge for solo player progression. In fact, some of the solo players have progressed more than the Golden Company, which is one of the largest groups on Danu. So it's a really good thing to see that that kind of methodology works. And in some ways it pays off a little bit more by playing as a solo than it does as a large group. But the only difference being that the large group can kind of determine when those types of things go on. But as a solo player, you can ask for those times. Don't be afraid to ask. A lot of the times people just want to go and explore dungeons, and they're willing to do it whenever that they're free. So next up, Discord is something that is important. I know there are at least 3 or 4 different Discords that I am a part of. We have the Golden City Discord, then we have the Danu RP Discord, and then there's a couple of other game groups that are all interacting with us on Danu. That applies for every other server as well. And it's really important to help organize. And this is how communities form. And it is very clear that that's how Mainframe wants communities to form as well. That being said, if you haven't come and joined the Professional Gamer Discord, which is this channel's official Discord, we talk about a lot of things Pax Dei related. It's how you can stay updated with the channel when I'm not online. You should definitely go check it out. The link is down in the description below. But that is all that we have to talk about today. Solo players have a place in Pax Dei. It is different than playing in a large group. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. And we're going to see a lot of changes in importance and viability of certain play styles come up as the economy comes online in the fall, as well as the feudal system, which I think is also coming in the fall, and many, many others. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you're a solo player and you're looking for something to do, come and check out the Golden City. We're on Danu. It's a fun place to be. We run all the time. If you're looking for a community of people to play with, but you're not looking to commit to a clan, try it out. There's many of these types of communities that exist throughout Pax Dei. It's worth trying. But if you enjoyed this type of content, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe so you can get notified whenever we come out with new Pax Dei related videos and share with any of your friends who are playing solo or interested in playing the game in general. And until next time, I'm Altari the Professional Gamer.